Hey everybody, thanks for joining me today. I want to talk about a topic that's really been important to me as a traveling public land hunter for the last 20 years or so. This is a trend that has really been growing, and it's a good thing for people like you and me if you like to go to other states to hunt whatever kind of deer or elk or whatever, but specifically I'm talking about primarily whitetails and mule deer here in this video, and more whitetails than anything else. So it's been more and more difficult to find public land to hunt, and as more and more land in the good deer hunting states gets bought up or leased up by outfitters, it's getting harder and harder to find a place to hunt. And that is particularly true in some of the more rural states where it's a very frustrating topic because, you know, for me, for example, growing up in Iowa, I could just talk to some of the farmers at church or go knock on doors and have plenty of places to go bow hunt in the 70s and 80s and so forth, and that's all changed. I mean, there's still a few places where you can knock on doors and get permission to hunt, but for a young guy that's just getting started, if you don't grow up in a family that has land or has the funds to lease or is a serious hunting family like I didn't, you know, my family didn't hunt, it's very difficult for a young person to get started, and that's not good for hunting. So I really like the fact that there's this trend towards increasing hunting access. And what I'm going to talk about today is the ability to hunt private land that's become open to sportsmen through programs in different states. And there's probably well over half the states have these programs now, and they don't all call them the same thing. But if you're going to go to a state, here's some tips on how to find this land and what to look for if you're going to maybe just start searching and so forth. So here's what some of them are called. The majority of them are called walk-in access. And these lands are where the state has an agreement with a private landowner, and the private landowner allows public hunting on his land, and then they put signs out and says, okay, you know, this is open to public hunting. In some states, they actually will pay the landowner a lease fee to allow the public. In some states, you actually have to buy a permit to hunt all of this walk-in access land, and then that money goes to the landowners. So there's a lot of different ways. Each state does it a little bit different, and each state calls it something different, but walk-in access is the number one way probably to search for this. But here's some other examples. North Dakota has private land open to sportsmen. Kansas, WEHA, walk-in hunting access. Iowa's Iowa Hunter Access Program. In Montana, you got the Block Management Program. Ohio, it's OLHAP. Nebraska is OFW. Illinois, it's REC, and these all stand for different things, but those are just some examples. If you do a Google search for private land open to hunting in any state, you'll come up with this kind of information. Now, a lot of states print books with maps in them that mark where all this land is, and of course it changes from year to year, so you got to get a new book every year. The best way to find this land and study it, research it, is online, and most of the states that are aggressive in growing and promoting these programs have interactive mapping features on their state DNR or Conservation Commission website, and then so you can go on there and they'll be marked in color, and you can zoom in on them, and then you can really research them. You look them over good, and then you see, oh, now here's a pretty good spot that might have some whitetails or mule deer in it. And keep in mind that a lot of these are geared towards upland bird hunters, and it's really been the pheasant hunters, quail hunters, and so forth that have helped push this thing along. So thanks to them, there's a lot of this open land that has great deer hunting that's really overlooked, and it's really surprising sometimes how many deer are on these properties that are actually geared more towards your upland bird hunters. So you really got to look for it. You got to do your homework. You got to really study it. But another thing that's very helpful with these is once you find the properties, then you get on your mapping apps like your OnX, Base Map, Hunt Stand, and so forth, and that'll help you really zoom in, and you can drop pins on there and so forth of places that you want to look at when you get there, and so you can get out there, do your boots on the ground scouting. Now keep in mind, these are private lands, and so They have a little bit different rules than public lands. They are usually less restrictive as far as hanging stands and maybe screwing a bow holder into the tree or something like that, but not always. So you got to study the rules and regulations on this, and because they're private lands, the landowner still has access to them, and he could be out there farming them and so forth, so keep that in mind. And because it's owned by the landowner, he can make exceptions. And one time I met the landowner on a gravel road right beside the land. I was just getting ready to go out there and take a tree stand out, and he talked to me a little bit. He goes, he had just assumed that he was allowing pheasant hunters to hunt his land. He was kind of excited actually to think that I was going to go out there and hopefully shoot a deer that had been eating his corn. So we talked. He was a nice guy, and he said, "Hey, if you shoot a big buck out there, just come and get me. I live right up over here. I'll bring my tractor and loader out there so you don't have to drag the whole thing all the way back out to the road." So, it's a unique situation. It's definitely well worth looking into. There's some pretty good stuff on this walk-in hunting access land in some of the states. So, hope this helps you. Keep this in mind when you're going to hunt a new state.